She'll be coming round a mountain when she comes. She'll be coming round a mountain when she comes. She'll be coming round a mountain. Ah, the female orgasm, such a wonderful topic of discussion, and I want to thank so far the people who have already responded on this one, including, of course, Moonlit Night 81, who did a great response as Scratch the Devil, and I thought that was very entertaining. Dawn, thank you for that. I also had a great response from Christine Peace, and I take it we're going to look forward to more from her about the issue of the woman's orgasm, and I'm really looking forward to more installments from you, Christine. And I had an early response from my friend No More C2, who used to be called Jesus Lives 57, and he had his Jesus Lives 57 channel DMCA'd into oblivion, so he's back now as No More C2. And I will link all three of those channels in the description box below. Now, I have an awful lot to say about my own sort of attitude regarding women's orgasms and how important they are in relationships and in a sex life. But before I get to that video, that's right, that's going to be a separate video to this one, I just want to talk about my own sort of personal journey of awareness regarding the female orgasm. Because, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, when I was becoming of age in terms of sexual awareness, it was the middle to late 70s, okay? And this predates, obviously, the internet, and it even predates things that we take for granted now, like talk shows. So there wasn't really any kind of open discussion about orgasms in general, or hell, about sex in general, really. It's not the type of thing you could turn on and see on the television. And it was certainly not the type of thing you were likely to overhear your parents discussing unless you made a dedicated effort to hear them talking about it after you went to bed. Not that I ever did such a thing, of course, far from it. How would I? But anyway, excuse me. Right. So my first sort of awareness of the fact that women even had orgasms was in the cinema when I was 15. I was watching Saturday Night Fever, and there's a scene in the movie where Double J is in the back of a car having sex with some girl, and John Travolta's character comes out to get him to hurry up. And Double J complains, she's like, but she hasn't come yet. And John Travolta says, since when do you care? And so after the movie, I remarked to my best friend Berkeley, who I saw the movie with, I remarked to him in a sort of a casual way, what was that line about, chick having an orgasm? And, Berkeley made some sort of joke that, Double J was pretending to care that she came, when he probably didn't really care. Most guys only really care about getting themselves off, Berkeley said, and left it at that. Now, here's the thing. Because this wasn't a topic of open discussion, like in the media, and because I was a virgin when I was 15, I didn't really want to ask any more questions about it, because as a young man, even if people know you're a virgin, you don't necessarily want people to think that you're such a simple son of a bitch that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about as regards sex. So I couldn't ask anybody about it, because I didn't want to come across as not being, Mr. Know-it-all, studly, just waiting for the right woman to come along so I can rock her socks off kind of a guy. Anyway, so I had to pay an awful lot of attention to conversation that I would overhear, and also, yes, in fact, in movies, which is where most of the talk about orgasm seemed to be coming from in my awareness anyways. 1980 came around, and I think it was 1980, there was this movie called American Gigolo, starring Richard Gere as the Gigolo. And in that movie, he's lamenting the fact that there's this client of his whose husband didn't give a damn about her having orgasms, and so he was the first and only person ever to get this woman off as her gigolo. And he was complaining that it took her 3 hours to get her off, and he really didn't think he was going to get her there for a while. And so it occurred to me that getting a woman off was something you had to put effort into. It wasn't just a natural consequence of fucking. And that, was semi-daunting, because it meant there was skill involved, and it meant that there was probably some kind of a technique, and it meant that it wasn't necessarily guaranteed. All of those things were implied from this part of the movie. And a couple of years later, I was on a road trip with my boss, and we were talking about the mysteries of the female orgasm, and my boss, who was about 5 or 6 years older than me, I think I was, would have been about 19 or 20 during this conversation, maybe 21 at the oldest, and still hadn't had a repeat sexual partner yet at this time. And so I was, keen to have this conversation because he was quite open about it. But he assured me that as a man, if you're having sex with a woman and you fail to cause her to have an orgasm before, during, or after sex, you have therefore failed in your responsibility as a lover. You are therefore, in quotation marks, a bad fuck, a bad lover. You failed. So, and this conversation went on for about an hour and a half, and I was like, pretty perplexed about it and trying not to act as ignorant as I really was. And but he made it very clear to me in no uncertain terms that if you don't get your woman off, you have failed. So by the time I did have a sort of a girlfriend who we had sex with, on a repeat basis, the pressure to perform was already there. Even though the very first time we had sex, she had like the most amazing orgasm in the world. And that was the first time a girl ever had an orgasm with me. And I'll tell you what, the feeling of empowerment and the feeling of validation, you literally can't describe how awesome it is. And I really, really got the idea that an orgasm was quite a big deal for a woman because of the reaction that they have whilst they're having an orgasm is something that if you've never seen it before can catch you quite off guard. And in a good way, in a really good way. The thing is, I had no idea what I was doing, or if anything I was doing was what was getting her to have orgasms. In fact, now that I'm older, I can say for sure that when it was orgasms during sex, it probably wasn't anything I was doing specifically. She was just really, really excitable and very, very sensitive. And, maybe I was good at it. I don't know. But really, I don't necessarily think it had that much to do with me at first. But here's the thing. Because she'd have orgasms more often than not, the times that she didn't have orgasms, almost invariably, were times that I came off way sooner than I intended to do. And so accidentally, because we didn't really talk about it, unfortunately, I wasn't really sort of sexually confident enough to have these open conversations that you need to have if orgasms become an issue in a relationship. So basically, if I didn't get her off, she would throw this huge guilt trip on me about how I was being selfish, and that would almost always be because I'd come too soon. And so I unfortunately made this correlation in my head that long sex equals female orgasms. That all you have to do is basically just keep pounding away, and sooner or later she's going to come. Well, of course, I learned better than that as I became more sexually active. After that relationship came and went and so forth, and I was still sexually active. And it wasn't really until my first marriage that I actually discovered that it was more to it than just keep on keeping on. But I did sort of get really, really good in my previous relationship with this other lover I was telling you about. I got really, really good at going down because it occurred to me one night that, a woman who is, and this is in the 80s, but a woman who is sexually active outside of relationships as well as within relationships is probably going to rack up a couple of dozen lovers during her lifetime. And it doesn't seem very probable that just from penetrative sex that you're likely to stand out head and shoulders among the crowd of lovers in a woman's sort of repertoire of lovers. Consequently, I thought, well, you know what, then I'm going to get really, really good at giving head. And I want to be really, really good at eating pussy because honestly, it occurs to me that the list of guys who are good at that is probably a lot shorter than the list of guys who are good at penetrative sex. So I made it my mission to get really good at it. And, I dare say, thanks to paying a lot of attention to how a woman responds to what you're doing, you can learn an awful lot about how a woman works mechanically downstairs. And when you're up close and personal like that with your face, and you're paying attention, yeah, you can figure an awful lot of stuff out without ever having to ask anybody and have those types of awkward moments. So by the time I was married, I pretty much was proficient at that, and I became proficient during marriage as well with manual dexterity. And I learned during marriage that the safest way to remove orgasm politics from your sexual experiences is to just get your woman off during foreplay. and therefore there's much less pressure to have an orgasm during penetrative sex. And this has been pretty much my mode of operation ever since then. Yes, it's really important to me to get a woman off. And I'm going to talk about more that type of thing in my next video on the subject. But for now, I just wanted to talk about my sort of personal journey. And just to reassure people, who might have less sexual experience, that the female orgasm is not a myth, and it doesn't have to be something that you're daunted by, because really it's just a matter of paying attention and giving a damn, and so forth. Women are not that difficult to figure out, but you cannot forget that there's an emotional component as well, and that needs to be serviced every single bit as much as the more physical side. All right, this has Got That Funk. That's going to wrap it for this video. More to come later.